Hello and welcome. I'm Travis,
And I'm Greg,
and you're listening to Building Blank, a collaborative world-building podcast.
where we talk about everything world building, from the lowest dungeon to the highest peak.
And today, we're diving into the world of fortresses and finales.
Like a magnetized needle floating on a surface of oil, resistance will unfailingly point to true north, meaning that calling or action it most wants to stop us from doing. We can use this. We can use it as a compass. We can navigate by resistance, letting it guide us to that calling or action that we must follow before all others. Rule of thumb: the more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel toward pursuing it. So that's a quote from Stephen Pressfield and from his book, The War of Art.
Okay.
Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. And so kind of the way I like to think of it, it's like, if that didn't make any sense from my reading of it, it's just the thing that kind of like the way I think of it, like the thing that scares me is where I need to go. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is not only do I think this is a great book for anybody doing anything creative, especially, but even, well, now it's the new year, maybe New Year's resolutions, anything that you're passionate about or anything that's going to make you better, just always kind of has that resistance to it, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's stopping you from, like, it'll come in all the different forms, and like laziness, or, you think it's an outside force. But anyway, what I'm getting at is I wanted to talk a little bit about writing today, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Incorporate it a bit.
Because that's part of world building is writing.
Yeah. And I've been writing and I haven't really talked about it. And I think it's this resistance where it's like, the reason I don't want to talk about it is because those feelings of, like, since I'm more passionate about writing, it makes more resistance for me to do anything about it, including talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I have no problem talking about geography and biomes and science because I don't consider myself a scientist.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if I mess it up as much, right? Like, to me, it's just a means to an end. Like, geography, I can learn a little bit about geography and then I can apply it to world building or writing.
Yeah.
Then that's cool. And so it's not as, I don't know, just like vulnerable feeling. But anyway, so what I wanted to talk about, I guess, today was a couple of things, or a few things you can do in your third act, or in your big final battle, or your fortress, like, the boss's lair.
Yeah.
And just to kind of spice it up a bit. And so I guess we'll just get right into it.
All right, let's get into it. So this is fortresses and finales.
Yeah, episode 16. So first thing is pretty obvious. It is being impenetrable, right? Like, almost always.
It's a big looming thing.
Yeah, and first thing that I think of is like Boromir, one does not simply,
walk into Mordor. Yeah.
Like, that's always a theme of these final bosses.
Like, what do you mean you want us to go there?
Yeah, and there's always somebody that's like, no, you can't go there. One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Yeah.
And another one is, also, since we're talking about fortress and finales and stuff, there might be some spoilers. So just so you know that ahead of time, I'm not going to stop myself while we're talking about it.
I find most podcasts are just full of spoilers, especially if they're talking about like breaking down of tropes and things. And you kind of should think that, like, going into it, that. I mean, if you don't know how Lord of the Rings ends, like,
maybe you should go watch that first.
When was it written?
Yeah.
When did the movie come out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm going to just do a quick quote, or not quote, but talk about Ready Player One. You've seen that, right?
I have not, actually.
What? Oh, it's really good. And
it wasn't something that I was like immediately interested in. So
the reason it was only because of the DeLorean.
Okay.
I love Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And he's driving the DeLorean around. And so I never read the book. So I'm not going to talk about, the movie being worse than the book or whatever. Okay. But basically, going back to the impenetrable thing, in Ready Player One, they have that force field that it encompasses, or like they get, I should have looked it up. It was like the globe of Oravox, and it's this legendary item, and you need to like do an incantation. But basically, there's no way that this orb can be brought down.
Okay.
And then they do like a funny thing where the boss guy is talking to his dragon, and by dragon I mean just like second in command, right?
Yeah.
He's like, so because he doesn't know much about the video game, he's just like a business guy.
Yeah.
But this other guy is like a top player in that world. I think his name is iRock.
Okay.
But anyway, he's like, so how long does this globe will last? And he's like, I don't know, like 10,000 years probably. Yeah, that'd be my best guess. And I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. And then as soon as he says it, right, like tempting fate, it just comes down. But anyway, so that's basically it. Just impenetrable. And then also I'd heard this example, and I can't remember where I heard it, but if inside the story someone describes the plan of how they're going to get in, it means it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Right? If they're like, okay, first we're going to do this, and then we got to like knock out the sentries.
Unless it's a heist movie.
No, even if it's a heist.
Okay.
Because if they explain it before they do it, it means it's not going to happen.
Okay.
But if they don't explain what they're going to do, like in Ocean's 11, right? They're not explaining what they're doing. They're kind of explaining it. And then like the reveal at the end is
But they're also like showing it while they're explaining it. Usually when they're talking about the plan.
Yeah, but then they have like that last thing where it's like,
oh yeah, the last little twist.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like they didn't share everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That, like I said, that one's pretty straightforward, being impenetrable. And so another thing I like adding at the end is this thing that I just called the last of its kind.
Okay.
So like the last alliance of elves and men, regardless of what's going to happen, like there's an irreversible change after this battle.
Something's happening. Either way it goes, that's it. That's the last time this is going to happen.
Yeah, like good guys, bad guys, doesn't matter. Whoever wins, something bad's going to happen, or something.
Something is going to happen. Something big,
and you can't go back. And so, going to one of my favorite movies of all time, The Last Samurai.
You love that movie,
right? It's like end of an era. These samurai are up against industrialized Japan, and like they're riding horses against Gatling guns.
Yeah,
right. And
shot with cannons, they have bows and arrows. Yeah,
and so it's just crazy to begin with, but there's something more like it's just more poignant that it's The Last Samurai. You know, like regardless of what happens, even if Tom Cruise is all crazy and gets in there and kills everyone and wins.
Yeah,
it's still The Last Samurai.
Yeah, there's no more. There's going forward. There's no more samurai.
Like he can win that battle, but the war is already lost.
Yeah.
And then I like that one because it's not so much who's going to win, but just like the fact that he fights anyway. Yeah,
it's a no-win situation for them, but they're fighting anyway.
Exactly, and I really like that. That's kind of one of my favorite things because it's just that grit and that character that I love in stories. But that kind of comes to another thing is just like having the stacked odds.
Yeah.
And so that's similar, but I like the quote from Gimli, the dwarf, not the town. Certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
Just before they go to Mordor.
Yeah, just let's do it.
Yeah. And it's just like they know that they're probably going to die, but they're going for it anyway. And I think that's what makes it's very heroic, right?
Yeah. I think that battle, they knew going in that they're going to lose. The whole point is not to win, but to draw attention.
Yeah. And that I think is important. And same with like The Last Samurai, right? And some other things. It's not so much who wins the battle. Like it's kind of like a front, or not a front, but it's like, it's kind of thin when you just like have, we're going to have a battle and then, winner takes all kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what hinges the like all the, I don't know, all the odds or the, what am I trying? Oh, whatever. But anyway, so another thing I like having, and these are all pretty basic, but I thought if I'm going to talk about writing, I'm going to just start real basic.
Yeah.
And so another thing I like having is the one last surprise.
Okay.
Like
the twist.
Yeah. The twist, right? You think everything is already set up but there's kind of like room for one last surprise.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the problems I had with the end of Game of Thrones kind of relates to this, but in the terms of like the law of diminishing returns. Like if you have too many surprises or just like big action things all at once, they start meaning less and less.
Yeah.
And so in those last episodes, I don't think necessarily that was bad. I think that if they did that exact same story, but did it over, instead of 7 episodes, did it over like maybe even double that, it would have like maybe fixed some of those things. And that's just my opinion.
The thing I felt about Game of Thrones, I know we're getting a little off topic, like the whole way up, first 5-6 seasons, everything is long and drawn out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this big war, this big confrontation between these two factions that we've been building up to is just boom, done. 1 episode. Mm-hmm. We don't even get to like spend time in the war. It's like 1 battle, we're done.
Yeah, and that happens in the books too. Martin starts speeding things up. Like in the beginning, it would take forever. Like it takes them forever to get from Winterfell to King's Landing in the beginning. And then by the end of it, it's like, okay, we need to go to Winterfell. Next scene, Winterfell.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because it's just it's just keeping the parts you need, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into that because
it also kind of reminds me of playing D&D a little bit.
Okay.
Because the early levels, I love early level play because you explore a lot of the travel, right? There's more road threats. There's more small things, and you go into all these nook and crannies. But then you get to the late levels and you're facing, world-ending threats. Yeah. You kind of skip over the travel most of the time.
Yeah.
Because realistically, what can I randomly throw at you that is going to be a threat? Like bandits, okay, 1 round and they're all dead.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. I like that. I might like write that down as like a thing. Think of them in terms of battling, because all that really is power escalation, right?
Yeah.
Like, or leveling is what that would be in D&D, right?
Yeah, because like game. I have a lot of trouble with, like, I want to draw out the travel aspect of it because that can be fun.
Well, and that's where the world building, a lot of that is, right? Yeah. I mean, I know some people don't like the Lord of the Rings movies because they're like, oh, it's just a tourist promotional video for New Zealand, just watching people walk around the whole time.
And that's like the part of the adventure, right?
Well, yeah, it's those majestic landscapes and just like just the presence of the world. And I don't know. I'm obviously biased, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and I hate that I gave you guys an airship because that just lets you skip over so many things.
Yeah, it really does. And then it makes us focus on time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, we can get there. This is what's the quickest way.
Yeah. I'm coming up with something to
nerf that. Nice. Yeah, so that was one last surprise. And like I said, it basically kind of use it sparingly, maybe have one last surprise. And that's kind of like trying to think of an example would be
like the final twist in a heist movie.
Yeah. And well, this kind of gets me to my last thing, and this could be the one last surprise. And so is having the lair or the fortress at the end self-destruct. And so this is a pretty common trope.
Yeah.
And on TV tropes, it's called, I think, collapsing lair is one. And that one's more for like kind of like the monster bosses.
Okay.
Or video games. And then like the self-destruct mechanism is the other one. And or it's kind of like the difference between fantasy and science fiction, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to like have a self-destruct mechanism. Anyway, but yeah, so it's basically like, okay, they won, the boss is maybe dead or maybe he's not. And the last thing that the boss does is destroys the
base with everybody in it.
And so I figured that kind of came in a couple different forms, the self-destructing or just getting the destroyed effect. And most basic is basically like, yeah, the fortress explodes and that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like the Death Star. You can go a couple different ways after that. And when it's like, it explodes when the boss dies, like it's just like a trigger, like something the boss was supporting that fortress or that thing.
Yeah. So maybe your big bad is a dragon in a mountain cavern. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that's keeping this elegantly carved cavern open is the dragon's magic. You kill it. Yeah. And the magic's gone.
Exactly.
Right?
It's a great example. Was that just off the top of your head?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about it while you were talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is basically what happens in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like the power of the ring, it has all that, right? All Sauron's powers in there. So when it gets destroyed, everything built by it is destroyed. So Barad-dûr, Mount Doom, all that stuff, except
all the baby orcs.
Oh yeah, and their families.
Yeah.
I just went out for a pack of smokes. What happened? And yeah, and so that was kind of it. And so this is my attempt at talking about writing. So hopefully it wasn't too bad. Yeah, and I was just going to do a quick recap. It's just like impenetrable. One does not simply walk into your third act without a challenge. The last of its kind, and that's kind of just like winner takes all almost, or like a zero-sum game. And then stacked odds, the certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for, right? Like, get in there. One last surprise, and or that's like Luke, I'm your father.
Yeah,
that's a really great example of it, because anyway, and or that one last surprise could go along with the self-destructing or by itself, but again, kind of use them sparingly. And since they get used so often, a lot of these things, try and like think of it maybe a different way of doing it.
Yeah, like some of these, and depending on your setting and your genre too, you can do it different ways. So I've been thinking, while you're talking about self-destructing, I've been thinking this week, me and Emma have been watching Phineas and Ferb.
Oh yeah, show. You were talking about that.
It is so good, and the parts with Perry the Platypus, like Agent P and Dr. Doofenshmirtz. So he's in this like contraption or new lab or something, and they're fighting, and then there's this big self-destruct button, and it gets hit by accident, and he's like, why do I keep putting those in?
Yeah, and
why do I keep building those?
And that's basically calling attention to how common this trope is. So
yeah,
that's why I didn't want to go too crazy on it, but yeah, I think that's about all I got.
All right, cool. So last week we did mooks, we did factions, and today was evil lairs and the fortresses. So next week, what are we doing?
Well, I think we should do villains.
Villains, okay.
Like we kind of been working up to it. We've been using a lot of the language. Boss, big bad, dragon.
Yeah.
There's also the Starscream.
Yeah, I love Starscream. He's my favorite Transformer.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course he is.
So that's what we're going to do next week. But after the break, we are going to read out the listener submissions that we got this week for our mooks.
That sounds good.
All right. So thank you guys, and we'll see you after the break. All right, and welcome to the break. This is the part of the show where we are not talking about world building. We are talking about what we're doing and about you guys. So first off, I want to say thank you to everybody who is listening.
Yeah.
We really appreciate all the feedback, and we really appreciate when you submit ideas. Yeah, that's really what we want to be doing, is kind of curating your ideas and working on this world together.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's really fun for us, especially.
Yeah, I love reading everyone's creative ideas.
Yeah.
So with that, we are working on something that we think you guys will enjoy. We're planning on doing a live stream in the coming weeks at some point when we figure out how to get everything set up properly.
Yep.
So not next week, but maybe the week after. I'm not too sure. We will announce it coming up. But we're probably going to stream on Twitch or, so we're probably going to stream on Twitch, and that way you guys can watch us in the process. You guys can submit ideas live.
Yeah.
If we're asking for things, if we're doing the world building section.
Yeah. So it's really kind of more of a brainstorming almost at that point.
That's really what I want the back half to be.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. So that is coming up. Watch our socials for that. So we have Facebook, Instagram. I've been on TikTok lately.
Yeah, good old TikTok.
Yeah. So just watch out for that announcement. Right. And is there anything else you're working on, Greg?
No. Well, I don't know. I'm always got
stuff going on. Yeah. So
yeah.
All right. We will let you guys get back to the show. Thanks. All right, and welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back to the back half of this podcast.
All right, so last week I asked everybody on Instagram and Facebook to send us in some NPCs to fill out our factions that we created. So we created 2 factions last week, the Black Skeletons, which is basically the Gnomish Mafia.
Yeah, run by Lojin.
And then we also had the Sisterhood of the Violet Enigma. I flipped Sisterhood to the front. You noticed?
Oh yeah, I was going to say.
It just sounded a little better.
Yeah, Sisterhood of the Traveling Violet Enigma.
Yeah, I thought it sounded better, so that's what we did, and we had a few people submit. So we're gonna read those out to you now. I'll start. We have Lee. We love Lee.
Yeah, definitely.
Always with the great ideas, and she always thinks of things that I don't think of in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just read out Lee's comment. My thoughts. Maybe the group is called the Black Skeletons because it's related to the name of the drug they deal, black magic, Sketlin, or the effects that it causes on the body. Like maybe it causes wasting as a side effect of the high. So chronic users look like skeletons. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I really like that.
Other illegal things could be considered for illicit operations are slaves, of course, parts of sentient races. Maybe orc meat is an aphrodisiac in elf culture.
I like where she went on that one.
I love it. I love it. That's canon now.
Oh no, it's so morbid, but I like it.
Banned, dangerous, endangered species, untraceable poisons, dragon eggs, unicorn foals.
Oh my god.
Stolen goods, anything from artifacts, from tomb robbers to high value spices stolen from caravans or the protection racket, all of that. It's all going in.
It's all going in. I love it.
All going in. So the Black Skeletons have a bunch of jobs that they do.
All emaciated.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know where she got skeleton from, what she's saying, maybe the name of it. But I almost, like, looking at that, I almost think that could also be like a play on, that might be Lojan's last name.
Maybe.
And then it's just kind of like, since he's the leader, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, we can work on that.
Yeah, so Lee gave us a NPC for both. So for the worst, we'll start with Black Skeleton member. Kurleg Ernstrang, a male half-orc. He's the Brute Squad, or rather, the Brute Squad. I love that. Or rather, part of it. He is an enforcer with a preference for blunt trauma, be it fists, clubs, or improvised bludgeoning items. All right, do you want to read the Violet Enigma member?
Sure. I think I'm pronouncing this right. Turla or Tyrla. Turla. I'll say Turla. Turla Blackmane.
Okay.
Ranger type, human, ? Specializes in sharpshooting, assassinations, and the like.
Perfect. Great. They are in the world. Perfect.
They're going in.
So Minty Fresh to Death on Instagram. She actually gave me one on Instagram and one on TikTok. So let's start. Rosalind Lawrenstall, a young half-elf who joined the Violet Enigma simply to please her mother, who is also a member. At first, this tomboy wasn't very excited, think it was some lame sewing circle, but soon as she caught word of swords and armor, she became one of the company's most eager recruits, though she's certainly nowhere near as the mercenary her mother is.
Nice.
All right, and for the Black Skeletons member, want to read that out?
Sure, that would be Giuseppe. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Giuseppe Smalltoes.
Giuseppe Smalltoes.
Yeah, a gnome and member of the Black Skeletons. This standoffish gnome is an expert lockpick and ultra quiet thief because of his small toes. If this is tailing you, you'd never know.
I love it. That's so funny. And then we have one more from Cyberheart Gaming on TikTok. Who says Porinori Goal is a gnome member of the Black Skeletons. His specialty is cooking. He makes meals for the gang when they return from missions. His favorite meal to make is meatballs, and he always has a smile on his face unless you insult his cooking.
Oh no, never do that.
No. So thank you everyone for submitting your ideas.
Just makes big meatballs all the time. Some what's it and the cannoli? Anyway.
No, I love it. And I really love everyone's creativity because people think of things that I don't.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think the point of this podcast is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to keep asking you guys for submissions. And again, if anyone has more, let us know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a theme, at least for a little while. Like we did some world building and we kind of built that region, right? Between Delta and the Iron mountains there, the Carapace Mountains, and we're
kind of filling it out as we go here.
And then we'll go back to that thing or that part where we're going to build some more lands and spread it out. But for now, I think we'll focus on this, fill out the members, fill out the city, the shops,
Yeah, make it a little bit more, lived in.
Yeah, and then I think while we're doing that, what I'd like to start doing, well, it kind of already started in my head a bit, but starting a narrative, right? Because that kind of comes back to like world building isn't really, it's almost like nothing if you don't have a story.
Yeah.
Like even all these characters, right? They're the character and then they have their story.
Yeah. Well, there is like threads starting.
Oh yeah, exactly.
To weave a story here.
Yeah.
Right? Between the different things, the different shop owners that we've created or that we've had created, the different factions and the different like members of those factions.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy curating all of it. And I think you said something last week that really stuck with me, which was you'd rather be a curator.
Yeah. Like I don't mind, like I like getting, having a place to put my ideas in and getting the ball rolling as well, and working together with you doing that. But to have it have a life of its own and then just kind of, curating that, I think would be really cool.
I really enjoy doing this back half. It's really my favorite part is just making something up, bouncing ideas off each other. And that's usually what I find is the hardest part of world building is you get stuck. And it kind of comes back to what you were saying before at the start of the video. This isn't a video. What am I talking about?
Like about resistance?
Resistance, yeah. Because a big part of my issue that I have with a lot of things that I try to do is I start doing something and it's not immediately what I picture it in my head.
Yeah, like perfection.
And I'm like...
Oh, I had a point to say there, but I guess I forgot it.
That's okay. That's okay. So yeah, I just want to say like, thank you everybody. I really enjoy having all of you as a sounding board. I really appreciate everyone who says, and lets us know. Lee, I love your ideas. You always think of things that I miss because we only have a limited time, right?
And like where your brain goes on it too.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, I think with that, we will move on to our weekly inspiration.
All right.
So what inspired you this week, Greg?
So I am taking a course in school called Brain and Behavior. Okay. So basically we had to watch this video, and the long and the short of it is basically there's this condition that's called blind sight.
Okay.
And that's kind of what the inspiration was. And blind sight, and I'm just going to like paraphrase, is basically the person is blind, legally blind, they can't see anything, but yet there's a part of their brain that's not connected to all the just like the straight up visual stuff.
Yeah.
That basically only detects motion. So that's like the lizard part and like the rodent part of our brain, like the super ancient part. But I just kind of thought that would be cool for maybe like a class or like a feature or something. And I don't know, there's probably actually something like that in D&D, is there?
There is. In the newest book, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, one of the new fighting styles is blind fighting.
Oh my God. Can I take back my weekly inspiration?
Nope, it's in there.
I did not mean to rip that off, by the way.
I mean, like, you can expand upon it, of course. Like, let's stop, right? And I have to tell myself to push through that.
Yeah, you definitely have
usually by the end, I'm happy with whatever I do if I make it that far, right?
And that's the thing, yeah. If you make it that far, and that's where resistance will get you. It's sneaky.
Yeah.
And
I heard a thing this week, I think on TikTok, where they say there is no new idea.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like, we've been telling the same 24 or 38 stories since Greek times.
Yeah. There's a book on that, right? Isn't it like the 7 main stories or something?
I'm not sure, but like...
And then they get subdivided down.
I was watching a person this week who was explaining like, there's nothing new. Yeah. Like things are recycled and have been recycled since ancient Greek.
Yeah. Actually, maybe it's a good thing that it's already in D&D because now we don't have to homebrew something.
Yeah. I love not having to homebrew stuff.
Yeah. Like, I like the idea of it, but the effect that it has on the entire world, right?
Yeah. There's some homebrewing that I don't mind doing. So like items, monsters, that's fine. Like I usually take a base, something, and then like modify it to what I need.
Yeah.
I don't like homebrewing classes. Like, I'll never homebrew a class for you because there's like balance that goes into it that's not the same. And I won't homebrew a race either.
Okay. Even if you were reskinning it?
I would reskin. That's different.
Okay.
Like if you want to say, you know, I want to be an Aarakocra, like a eagle person, but I want it to be an owl. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. And what about a feature? Would you do that?
Whatever fluff or flavor you want to, like your spells, if you're a wizard, if you want to say this is like the color they are, go for it. By all means.
Yeah.
As long as like the what I'm saying is I don't want to homebrew the mechanics.
Yeah, because they've been precisely worked on, right? Within
I'll
D&D.
even like homebrew spells specifically, but I won't like make a class or anything, you know?
Okay.
But yeah, I think we're a little off topic.
Oh, that's okay. But well, if we want to get back on, what was your weekly inspiration? So my weekly inspiration
was you.
What? Little old me?
Little old you. No, so kind of. You started drawing again. Yeah. And you've been like showing me all your work. And I'm like, man, I kind of want to draw. So I one night this week, I went online and I found some like drawing tips. And then I bought a book, like a sketchbook. And I bought a like how to draw book. Yep. And I've been like, that's all I did last night.
Oh, wow. Well, so that's good to know.
Yeah. So I was like, I just kind of want to like practice. And again, part of the problem I've always had was I start and I'm like, it doesn't look like what it looks like in my head. Oh, this is garbage. Yeah. Throw it out.
Yeah. The thing I always do is like, I have a goal that if I'm as good as this, like looking at somebody else's, whatever I'm doing, then I'll be happy. And as soon as I start getting into whatever it is, be it like drawing or writing, I immediately realize like you find like what I like doing is find out who's the best in it.
Okay.
And then I start comparing myself to them.
Yeah.
And then I get discouraged. And it's like, meanwhile, maybe I am at the level I wanted to be when I started, but then I've lost track of what my original goal was. And then I get caught in this like pursuit of perfection. And like, that's just impossible to be perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually realized last night while I was drawing using this book, that my problem was not like drawing features or anything. It was proportions and spacing. Like my spacing would be all off and I was like, oh, I hate this.
Yeah. I remember one of the first things I ever learned when I was drawing, and this one I was like a kid. I wanted to be like a cartoonist when I was a kid. So kind of like nerdy about it, but was draw what you see, not what you think you see.
Okay.
And that is just, it's almost like a mantra when I'm drawing, because you're like, okay, I see how that is. And like, or when I'm drawing anyway, I see how that is, like maybe the eyes, and I do that perfectly. Well, not perfectly, but you know, like I'm paying attention to what it actually I'm looking at. And then I'm like, and then there's a nose, and then I kind of start going off the script. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't do that, but especially when you're learning, just like, and the proportions, right? It's like there's rules.
Proportions and ratios. So what I would do, like when I was younger, I would look at like these how to draw things and be like, I don't need to sketch the circles and I'll just have to erase it after. Screw that, right? But now I'm like, okay, no, I'm older now, and I'm like, no, that's there for a reason, right? And I need to use that to practice.
Yeah, and like it's learning the rules before you can break them, and that's kind of why I like the tropes. It's like you see like the basic unit of measurement, like in drawing its shapes, right? And if you get good at drawing the shapes, then you can break those rules, but you know why you're doing it.
Yeah,
and it's same with tropes. They're basic units of storytelling, really.
Yeah.
Well, in some ways.
Yeah. And it all comes back down to that resistance. Like that's part of my problem with a lot of creative things. Right. I really first noticed that I had that problem when I started painting D&D minis.
Okay.
Because it would kind of look like crap. I'm like, well, I got to finish, right? I can't just leave it.
Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, definitely finishing. I had a hard time finishing any creative thing.
Yeah.
And there's that point where you're like, oh, this is garbage.
This is garbage. I should just start over, or I don't want to do this anymore. But no, like you got to finish, and they look good.
And take time away from it too. Like when I finish something, I always hate it, no matter what it is. And I take even just a day, or even if it's 5 minutes, come back and I'm like, okay, I'm being a little harsh on myself.
Yeah.
It's not terrible.
So I think like whenever it comes to creative stuff, we are our own worst enemies. Like we're our biggest critics. And so you inspired me this week.
Oh, well, thank you, Travis. And Yeah, I was going to read another quote then, just from that resistance. Okay. And it was, resistance is universal. You know, we're wrong if we think we're the only ones struggling with resistance. Everyone who has a body experiences resistance. And yeah, I don't know, just that feeling you have, you're not alone. Everybody has it. And you just got to push through it.
Yeah, exactly. So just keep pushing. I want to say thank you to everybody. And I think that's it. So if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can hit us up on Facebook or Instagram. The links will be down below. Or you can hit us up on email. That'll be down below as well. We have a Discord. Come hang out with us. We sometimes play games. I've been playing D&D with some people on Discord. So yeah, come say hi and be safe and have a great week.